Wow. It's unbelievable. Truly incredible to see those drones in person and all the things that they're capable of. So as we've seen just how effective these drones have been for Ukraine, how do they fit into the United States' future? Well, that's a big question we want to answer. I want to bring in Deborah Fairlamb. She's an American living here in Kyiv, co-founder of Green Flag Ventures, focused on Ukraine's wartime innovations, and an expert in emerging defense technology, including air, land, and sea drones. Deborah, I could talk to you about this all night for an hour, but I know it's 3:30 in the morning, so I really appreciate you joining us. You know, what we just showcased there a moment ago, that's really just one type of drone, the kamikaze drone. The Ukrainians, they have reconnaissance drones, they have drones that can swarm, they have drones that can target destroyers in the open sea, drones that can deliver food to the front lines. You're neck deep in this space. What is keeping you up at night as you see all of this emerging technology moving so fast here?
Good evening to you, and thanks very much. I think that really there are 4 points about what is happening with this war that I think about in the context of having implications for the U.S. And you actually have already touched on a couple of them. One is just the extraordinary iteration and fast pace of how this technology is developing. The second thing really has to do with just the absolute sheer numbers of drones. So it is true saturation, both out on the front, but also in the drones that you see Russia sending in deeper into Ukraine to target civilians and critical infrastructure. It's also the low price points. And this matters because it really comes back to just the sheer number of drones that are being used. And then the last thing is procurement, because the Ukrainian government really has figured out a way to get these drones out to the front line more quickly. And the US and other Western allies really do have a longer traditional procurement cycle. So those are the 4 big bucketed areas I think that there are things to be looking at.
Yeah, I'd like to play a little bit more of my conversation from some of these Ukrainian drone troops that are on the front lines. Take a listen to this for a moment.
The commander of our managed systems, he came to one of the NATO bases and he said that like 4 crews can take the whole base like in minutes. They don't build a NATO doesn't build a protection against the drones.
Do you buy that? I mean, do you believe that this technology has advanced so quickly here in Ukraine and there are these wide vulnerabilities that exist amongst NATO and the US?
I do think that there are some issues that it would be good for both the US and NATO to understand. One of the things is that drones do not necessarily replace conventional, traditional Western weapons, be they tanks or ships or armored personnel vehicles, but really that within the context of the traditional weaponry, they now do need to take into consideration the threats that drones play and have against them, but also understanding how these drones can work in conjunction with traditional weapons. And so in some ways you can think of it as maybe reversing the order of battle, whereas in the past you would send the tanks in first. Really now, because tanks are vulnerable to these new smaller FPVs, you actually probably would lead with more or less a drone wall and then bring in the heavier artillery or tanks behind it. So it's not that it is not overcomable. There are absolutely challenges. But one of the things is the West really does need to understand how much of an impact these drones are having directly on the front line, as well as some of the longer range drones, which you had also mentioned before.
3. Yeah, I know we're talking about this in the confines of a war that's taking place thousands of miles away from the US. But when I see this technology, my thought can't help but go to the domestic threat. You know, the thought of someone in the United States either building their own drone or purchasing one from a store, rigging it with homemade explosives, and now has a very viable weapon to be used in the United States, whether that's against a government or military facility or a civilian site. I mean, am I off base with that concern, or is that something we should be thinking about as this technology evolves?
No, I don't think you're off base. And I think that you are starting to see drones both in other battlefield situations. Actually, the Houthis have been using them down in the Red Sea in the recent border clashes with Cambodia and Thailand. They were being used. They are showing up in Africa. And I think you're absolutely right that there is the possibility of, be it a homemade threat or something more structured, drones really are now something that the United States needs to be taking into consideration.
All right, we'll leave it there. Deborah Fairlamb, thank you so much.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.